story. It describes how the Watchers did not simply teach humans about making weapons or jewelry. They changed people from the inside. They opened their minds, changing their nature, giving them ambition, desire, anger, and all the traits that lead to both achievement and destruction. This idea connects with how some researchers view the Templars and other ancient orders as groups that protected knowledge, not only gold. They were keepers of writings, secrets, and warnings that were not meant for everyone. Whether or not this idea is true, Lot 5 contains objects that seem to match a time when such groups were active. The artifacts on Lot 5 are from the early to mid-1600s, a time when groups like the Knights of Malta and other secretive European communities were moving across the world. These groups were known for their hidden missions, coded symbols, and long-term plans. What the team now believes is that Lot 5 was used by an organized group long before the money pit was discovered. They didn't come for a short visit. They lived here. They worked here. They built structures, stored items, and perhaps even planned something major. The large stone foundation, the weapons, the pottery, the beads, the buttons, none of these are the belongings of a small pirate crew or a lost group of travelers. These belonged to people who had a mission. This changes the entire story of Oak Island. The old tale says 3 young men found the money pit in 1795, but the objects now found on Lot 5 show the island was active long before that. The real story did not start with the money pit. It started on Lot 5, at least 100 years earlier. This also raises a new question. Did the people who lived on Lot 5 build the money pit? Think about it. The money pit has layers of logs, clay, coconut fiber, and complex flood tunnels. It was not something a random group could build quickly. It needed time, tools, planning, and a long-term settlement. Lot 5 may have been that settlement, the base of operations. The new findings make it clear that the people here were not hiding small treasures. They were hiding something big, and they were doing it with careful planning. This places Lot 5 into a new role. It becomes the starting point of the Oak Island mystery. With every new artifact found, the story grows older, deeper, and more connected. Researchers now believe Lot 5 may hold the key to understanding everything else on the island. If the people here built the money pit, then their purpose, their tools, and their knowledge all began on Lot 5. The discovery of the new cluster of artifacts on Lot 5 made the entire team pause and think. For many years, the idea was simple. Oak Island had treasure buried by someone mysterious, and the money pit was the center of everything. But now, Lot 5 was telling a different story. It was telling a story about people living quietly on the island long before the money pit became famous. It was telling a story about activity that was organized, careful, and possibly even secret. And most importantly, it was telling a story that nobody expected. When the archaeologists studied the artifacts from Lot 5, they noticed something very clear. The items were not random objects dropped by accident. They were grouped together in specific layers, but from untouched soil right beside it. That meant the object was still in its original place. Archaeologist Fiona came over and began to dig carefully. Slowly, she uncovered a small, squashed piece of lead shot. It was a tiny bullet. At first, the team did not think much of it. A bullet alone is not a major discovery. But the important part was how it connected to other objects already found on Lot 5. This bullet matched other gun-related items discovered earlier, including musket balls and a ramrod guide from a rifle. What made these finds stand out was their age. These gun artifacts did not belong to the time of the money pit legend. They were much older, dating back to the 1600s. This means that someone was on Lot 5 more than 100 years before the famous story of the 3 boys discovering the money pit in 1795. But the team didn't stop there. They kept scanning and soon got another signal, this time from something made of iron. When they dug it up, it looked like a piece of a hinge or part of a lock. This meant whoever was here had something worth protecting. Locks are not used for random campsites. They are used when something important needs to be kept safe. But the biggest surprise came when Gary got what he called a screamer, a loud, strong signal that meant a big piece of metal underground. Archaeologist Fiona returned quickly and began to dig again. The object was deep, about 10 inches down. As she removed soil, she noticed something else: glass. But this wasn't modern glass. It was old green glass made with a technique from centuries ago. It had striations on it, signs that it was a wound bead. Soon, more artifacts appeared: old earthenware pottery and the heavy metal object the detector had picked up. The discovery shocked the team. These artifacts were all from the same time period, all packed together in a small space, all untouched for centuries. Fiona made a decision immediately: stop the dig. What she found was not random trash. Archaeologists call this kind of grouping a feature. It could be part of an old cellar, a foundation corner, or part of a structure that nobody knew existed. The most surprising detail was the location of this new feature. It was found only 4 feet from where the team had earlier discovered the starburst and spiral buttons. These buttons may have been linked to the Knights Templar. Finding this new cluster so close to the buttons suggested that Lot 5 was much more important than anyone thought. It was not a campsite. It was not a simple resting place. It was a center of activity. This brings us to one of the strangest connections in the story: the link to ancient.
Lot 5 on Oak Island was always the quiet place nobody cared about. For years, people walked across it without even looking down. It was called boring, empty, and useless. Treasure hunters used it as a shortcut because nothing ever seemed to happen there. But everything changed in one moment, and the discovery that followed has become one of the strangest, most important finds on the island. The story of Lot 5 has turned into something that might change what people believe about Oak Island, and possibly even change parts of history itself. The day everything changed began with something simple. A researcher was walking across the area, just like many others had done before. But this time, his foot hit something sticking out of the ground. He tripped over it and fell. When he stood up, annoyed and brushing the dirt from his clothes, he looked at the object that caused the fall. He bent down, cleared away the soil, and suddenly froze. Something about the object did not look normal. He yelled for the rest of the team, and soon everyone gathered around him. What they found that day was not gold, not a tunnel, not a piece of wood from an old shaft. It was something different, something strange, something that made the team feel the ground beneath them had become more mysterious than ever. The object they found was small at first glance, but it carried weight far greater than its size. It was the kind of discovery that makes experts uneasy, not because it is dangerous in a physical way, but because it raises questions nobody is ready to answer. This find did not point to treasure alone. It pointed to something deeper, something older, and something hidden for reasons nobody yet understood. When the team dug further, the mystery became even bigger. Every new artifact seemed to connect to a story far older than the famous Money Pit legend. It felt as if Lot 5 had been holding secrets in silence for hundreds of years. To understand why this discovery is so important, we need to look back at how Oak Island investigations usually work. Most attention always goes to the Money Pit. It is the place where people dug deeper and deeper for over 200 years, spending fortunes and risking their lives. Many teams believe the Money Pit held the final answer. But Lot 5 was never part of that main story. It sat almost half a mile to the west, ignored by most searchers. But now, Lot 5 has stepped into the center of the mystery. What the team found here is not just another old coin or a random piece of metal. It is something that changes the entire timeline of Oak Island. The discovery began when metal detection expert Gary Drayton and Peter Fernetti were working with archaeologists on Lot 5. They were studying a large stone foundation near the shoreline, a structure that had confused them since the year before. The government had already marked this area as archaeologically sensitive, which meant the team could not simply dig freely. They needed to stop and call in the archaeologists whenever they found something meaningful.
This area was no longer just part of a treasure hunt. It had become a protected archaeological site. The crew was short-handed, and Rick had to rely on coordination, patience, and skill. Even minor errors could damage the wash plant or halt operations, costing time and gold. Rick also faced the emotional blow of losing Brian Zaremba, a trusted crew member, to other duties. Brian's absence removed stability from the team at a critical moment. Despite these challenges, Rick pressed on. The wash plant was carefully positioned, the sluice set up, and the stockpile prepared for processing. Each step was critical. To meet his goal of 1,800 ounces, Rick needed perfection. Every ounce of gold mattered. His determination was tested, as was the resilience of his team. In this environment, success depended on grit, skill, and the ability to adapt under pressure. Back at Dominion Creek, Parker Schnabel continued to demonstrate the harsh realities of leadership. Balancing productivity with morale required constant attention. Decisions that affected gold output also affected human relationships. Firing, demotion, and strict oversight created tension, yet the results spoke for themselves. The wash plants operated efficiently, producing millions in gold, showing that discipline and structure could achieve remarkable outcomes even under extreme pressure. The dynamics between Tony and Mike continued to illustrate the complexity of family and business. Tony's decisions to prioritize the site producing the most gold over his son's ambitions caused friction. Mike understood the rationale, but resented the loss of autonomy. Such moments reveal that Gold Rush is not just about machinery and mining techniques. It is also about human relationships, leadership under pressure, and the sacrifices required to succeed in a high-stakes environment. Rick Ness's gamble highlighted the unpredictability of mining. Even with a new claim, a reduced crew, and technical challenges, success depended on skill, determination, and luck. Moving the wash plant, preparing the site, and managing the limited crew required careful planning and execution. The outcome of his season depended on every choice he made, demonstrating the delicate balance between risk and reward in the mining business. As Episode 5 progressed, it became clear that the season was reaching a turning point. Parker, Tony, and Rick were all at critical junctures. Parker's decisions to fire and demote affected both gold output and crew morale. Tony's strategic moves showed the balance between ambition and family relationships. Rick's bold gamble demonstrated the importance of taking calculated risks. Each storyline revealed the human cost behind the pursuit of gold, showing that leadership is as much about managing people as it is about managing machines. The week's gold totals reflected both skill and pressure. Parker's operations produced staggering numbers despite setbacks, while Tony's aggressive strategies kept him at the top of the leaderboard. Rick's gamble had not yet yielded full results, but the potential was there. Every ounce of gold represented a combination of planning, labor, risk, and perseverance. The crews were tested not only physically but emotionally, highlighting the unique challenges of Yukon mining. Episode 5 ended with all three bosses in different positions, yet each facing the weight of decisions made. Parker's crew delivered massive gold output but felt the emotional cost of leadership choices. Tony's family dynamics became more strained, showing the balance required between ambition and personal relationships. Rick stood at the edge of his season with his investment and reputation on the line. Together, these storylines painted a vivid picture of Gold Rush. Every ounce of gold comes at a cost, and leadership requires courage, precision, and sacrifice. As the week continued, Parker Schnabel's Dominion Creek operation maintained its momentum, but every day brought new challenges. Each crew member was under constant scrutiny. Even small mistakes could cascade into significant losses. Parker understood that in a high-stakes mining operation, leadership means accountability. He had to ensure every crew member performed at their best while maintaining morale. The pressure was relentless, yet the results were impressive. Tyson Lee continued to manage the crew after the firing of Charlie Carlton and the demotion of Caden Foote. He had to balance strict oversight with encouragement. Some crew members were shaken by Charlie's firing. Others were motivated, realizing that they had to perform at their highest level. Tyson had to make quick judgments, correcting errors before they became costly. Each decision affected not only the current gold output, but also the long-term trust and cohesion of the team. Caden Foote, despite his demotion, worked tirelessly to regain confidence. Every loader movement, every adjustment was a chance to prove himself. He understood the stakes. If he failed again, there would be no second chances. The pressure forced him to focus completely, and gradually he began to perform better. Each successful task restored a little of his confidence and slowly earned back the trust of Tyson and Parker. Meanwhile, Parker's wash plants continued to produce exceptional results. Roxanne on Sulphur Creek led with 350.70 ounces, showcasing precision and efficiency. Dominion Bridge Cut produced 196.2 ounces from Bob, while Sluheifer added 261.25 ounces. These totals were not only impressive, but essential for meeting Parker's 10,000-ounce goal. The team's combined efforts demonstrated that even under pressure, well-coordinated operations could achieve outstanding results. While Parker focused on internal management, Tony Beets was pushing his team to achieve maximum output at Indian River. Tony had already accumulated over 1,000 ounces, giving him a lead on the leaderboard. However, he knew that maintaining momentum was critical. Equipment and manpower were essential. He needed more rock trucks, an additional excavator, and a large dozer to maintain speed and efficiency. His goal was clear, and every decision was calculated to reach it. The negotiation between Tony and Parker over the dozer was a highlight of the week. Both understood the machine's importance. Parker demanded $1.5 million and Tony countered with $1.3 million. Neither would compromise, showing that in the mining world, every asset carries significant value. The standoff demonstrated strategic thinking. Sometimes knowing when to step back and adapt is as important as pushing forward. Tony eventually left without the machine, but quickly adjusted his plan to maximize resources he already controlled. Tony's choice to reallocate trucks and crew from Paradise Hill to Indian River created tension with his son Mike. Mike wanted to operate independently, but Tony prioritized overall production. Leadership often means making tough decisions that are unpopular. The results, however, justified the move. The cleanout revealed 404.52 ounces of gold, worth more than $1.4 million. Over 4 weeks, Tony's strategic decisions led to a total of 1,430 ounces, equaling roughly $5 million in gold. The strategy worked, but family tensions were a reminder that success often comes with a human cost. Rick Ness faced his own high-stakes challenge at Lightning Creek. With a new claim and a reduced crew, he had to prove himself. The $700,000 investment in the claim was risky, and success depended on careful planning and execution. Moving the rocky wash plant was particularly challenging. The narrow, twisting road, steep banks, and proximity to a creek made every movement critical. The crew had to coordinate perfectly to avoid damage and ensure operational success. Brian Zaremba's temporary departure from the crew added emotional pressure. He was a trusted member, providing stability and experience. Losing him at a critical time tested Rick's leadership and the resilience of the remaining team. Despite the added challenges, Rick pressed forward. The wash plant was positioned, the sluice set up, and preparations for running stockpiles were complete. Every ounce counted, and Rick's determination was crucial to achieving his 1,800-ounce goal. Back at Dominion Creek, Parker monitored every aspect of operations. He knew that success depended not only on machinery and manpower, but also on maintaining crew discipline. Each crew member had to perform at their best. Mistakes were corrected immediately. Decisions to fire or demote were not taken lightly, but they ensured the team stayed focused and efficient.
Leadership required balancing productivity with human dynamics, and Parker was learning the hard lessons that came with it. Tony Beets continued to dominate the leaderboard, but the strain on family relationships became evident. Mike's frustration with resource reallocation highlighted the personal sacrifices required for success. Tony's ambition drove results, but also created tension. Balancing business objectives with personal relationships proved to be a complex challenge. The episode illustrated that mining is not just about gold. It is about managing people, resources, and emotions simultaneously. Rick Ness's gamble at Lightning Creek exemplified the high-risk nature of mining in the Yukon. Every decision, from moving the wash plant to preparing stockpiles, had consequences. The reduced crew size added to the difficulty. Success required teamwork, precision, and persistence. Each ounce of gold depended on careful planning, execution, and sometimes luck. The episode highlighted that mining is as much about strategy and risk management as it is about digging dirt. The week's gold totals reflected the efforts and sacrifices of all three bosses. Parker's Dominion Creek operations produced millions in gold, despite personnel challenges and leadership pressures. Tony's aggressive strategies maintained his position at the top of the leaderboard, generating impressive returns despite family tension. Rick's bold gamble at Lightning Creek demonstrated that calculated risk could pay off if executed correctly. Each storyline highlighted the human and financial cost of pursuing gold in the Yukon. Episode 5 concluded with all three bosses at pivotal moments. Parker achieved impressive output but carried the emotional burden of tough leadership choices. Tony's determination kept him ahead but strained family relationships. Rick faced uncertainty, relying on careful planning and risk-taking to achieve success. The episode painted a vivid picture of Gold Rush Season 16. Every ounce of gold comes with challenges, risks, and personal sacrifice. Episode 5, Pick Me Someone to Fire, demonstrated that mining is not simply about digging dirt. It is about leadership, accountability, and decision-making under pressure. Every action, every choice, and every ounce of gold carries weight. Parker, Tony, and Rick exemplified different approaches to the same goal, extracting gold while managing people, machines, and risks. The episode reinforced the idea that, in the Yukon, success is earned through skill, determination, and resilience. The episode also highlighted the importance of teamwork. Each operation relied on crew members performing at their best. Leadership was critical, but the execution by the team determined whether goals were met. Mistakes were costly, and every member understood the stakes. The balance between discipline and encouragement, risk and reward, ambition and relationships was constant. The Yukon mining environment demanded not only physical effort, but emotional and strategic intelligence. As the week progressed, Parker Schnabel's Dominion Creek operation showed both the promise and
the burden of success. Every day, the crew faced new challenges. Machines broke down, rocks shifted unexpectedly, and minor mistakes could cost thousands of dollars. Parker understood that in order to reach his 10,000-ounce season goal, he had to maintain discipline while keeping his crew motivated. This balance between pressure and support defined his leadership style. Tyson Lee continued to oversee the crew after making tough decisions. The firing of Charlie Carlton and the demotion of Caden Foote created ripples throughout the team. Crew members realized that performance mattered above all else. Tyson monitored the crew closely, observing body language, productivity, and teamwork. Each task became a test of skill and focus. The Yukon environment allowed no margin for error, and every ounce of gold depended on precise execution. Caden Foote, adjusting to his new role as loader operator, pushed himself to perform perfectly. He understood that redemption required consistent effort. Each loader movement was not just about moving dirt, but about proving himself to Tyson, Parker, and the rest of the crew. The demotion was a humbling experience, yet it also provided clarity. Caden now knew that to survive and succeed in this high-pressure environment, he had to focus entirely on his work. Parker's wash plants continued to deliver impressive results. Roxanne on Sulphur Creek led the operations with 350.70 ounces of gold. Dominion Bridge Cut produced 196.2 ounces, while Slucifer added 261.25 ounces. Together, these totals contributed to over $3 million in weekly gold production. The team's efficiency demonstrated that even under high pressure and emotional strain, proper planning and execution could achieve extraordinary results. Tony Beets, meanwhile, faced his own unique challenges. His site at Indian River had already produced over 1,000 ounces, keeping him ahead in the leaderboard. Yet, he knew the margin for error was shrinking. Time was critical, and he needed more equipment to maintain momentum. His negotiations with Parker over the dozer ended without a deal, highlighting the high-stakes nature of mining in the Yukon. Each piece of machinery carried immense value, and strategic decisions about resources could determine the success or failure of an operation. Unable to secure the dozer, Tony redirected his focus. He reallocated trucks and crew from Paradise Hill to support Indian River. This decision caused tension with his son Mike, who wanted independence on his site. Tony's priority was overall output, not personal ambitions. While this strategy maximized gold production, it highlighted the personal sacrifices required in the pursuit of wealth. The week's cleanout at Indian River revealed 404.52 ounces, worth more than $1.4 million. Over 4 weeks, the total output reached 1,430 ounces, or roughly $5 million. The numbers were impressive, but the strain on